Wow, there. Okay. Can everyone see our screen? Was a thumbs up? Okay. Thanks, Melinda. I see the head nod and the thumb. Okay. Thank you. So as per usual, we'll start with setting our intention. So our intention, as always, is to build a community in balance with the masculine and feminine energies. And we aspire to end generational trauma in our communities through healing and growth. All right. And feel free to unmute. We'll say our affirmation as a call. Okay.
I am open to the wisdom within me.
I am open to the wisdom within me.
I embrace the path of self-discovery.
I embrace the path of self-discovery.
I am ready to strengthen my bonds with others.
I am ready to strengthen my bonds with others.
Together we embark on this sacred journey.
Together we embark
on this sacred journey.
Ashe.
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 Okay. I think we can just dive right in. So we're not even, there's no buffer, right? So we are diving right in. And as we know, right, we are right here at the traditional Valentine's Day. But what some of us may know, or this may be a newer idea that we're sharing about, is Akoma Day. And so just briefly going through what Valentine's Day has been, right? So we know it's been celebrated on February 14th. What we may or may not know is that it has origins in ancient Roman and also some Christian traditions. It is named after Saint Valentine, which was a martyr from the 3rd century, and has evolved to become a pretty much a global celebration of love and romance for some. And the day is marked by exchanging gifts, such as, looks like we're getting some feedback. The day is marked by exchanging gifts such as flowers, chocolates, and cards, right? Are you all able to hear us okay?
Yes, I think we hear the same
but there's
thing.
some feedback.
You're hearing the feedback too?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. But in terms of Akoma Day is also observed on February 14th. And of recent, it's actually been expanded to be a 7-day experience. And it's a relatively new celebration in America, at least, which is gaining its prominence in African and African American communities. So it derives its name from the Adinkra symbol, which is an akoma, which represents the heart. And it is a symbol of patience and tolerance in Akan culture. And Akan is the culture of Ghana. And so Akoma Day emphasizes the importance of love, unity, family, and community. It serves as a reminder of the rich cultural heritage of the African diaspora.
Yeah, I mean, so just really quick, on Valentine's Day, you said that it has evolved to become a global celebration of love and romance. And I will challenge that on what Valentine's Day has become. But I guess we'll get into that as we go. But
maybe more like social media and finance, like hardship.
Yeah. I mean,
expensive holiday.
Right. And we'll get into that. But Valentine's Day is it's something. It's evolved into something different, I believe, now that's not connected to what it should be. Where this is where I look at Akoma Day and it connected with me because it's what I think it should be. The connection between the man and the woman, the masculine and the feminine, and about the love, the heart. Where Valentine's Day, it's a business. It's and if we get into the money of it, which I don't know if we might, but it's a $1 billion industry that's not driven, I believe, by what it's meant to be. So I think Akoma Day is something that connected with me.
Okay. So we have a lot to cover, lots of detail here to share, right? We did some homework here over some time. But we wanted to start in a place of exploring romance. And, that's kind of been our theme, right? Each week since Sacred Word, we're getting really intentional about the words that we use and why and what they really represent, not only phonetically when we speak them, but even, energetically, right? Based on where they come from, how they can make us feel. So exploring the word romance, we started in ancient Europe, which is where it actually began, right? So the word romance traces its origins back to the early medieval period, specifically to the old French term romance. This term was derived from the medieval Latin romanis, which meant in the Roman manner or in vulgar Latin. Originally, Romans referred to the vernacular languages that evolved from Latin as opposed to Latin itself. So essentially, where we get to the bottom line here is that the word romance is derived from words like Romanese and Romans, which comes from Europe. So it's a European phrase or European word and thought, essentially. And it has essentially later on become the word that gets used to even express love somewhat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that even in ancient Europe, its intention initially was really to describe fantasy, to describe fiction, to describe poems and the feelings associated with the things that were shared in poems and literature. And in that last line, it indicates that the romances were epic tales of heroism, chivalry, and courtly love, often set in a distant or idealized past. So even in ancient Europe, where the word is derived, it didn't necessarily, it wasn't intended to be a word to describe reality or even current conditions. It was intended to describe the past and to romanticize language about how to tell storylines with fantasy. So in Middle Times, which was so over some time, the meaning of romance began to evolve and also narrow, and then focusing more on the themes of love and adventure that were also common in romance literature. So that's like the next layer of it, right? So now we see it going from being the way we describe something to the way we almost experience it, right? And by the late Middle Ages, the word romance had become closely associated with chivalry, courtly love narratives across Europe, right? So they're telling the story of essentially heroism, right? So there's a figure, usually a man, who's the hero and the savior in some way and rescuing. And it was intended to be a storyline. So these stories typically revolved around noble heroes, idealized love, and daring adventures, right? So that's even in the Middle Times. And it was characterized by an emphasis on emotional and spiritual connections at some point, often transcending social conventions and practical considerations. So essentially, right, it was not intended to, again, describe reality. It was not intended to be practical. It was fantasy. It was fantasy. And then we get to, which is always our last stop, right? And essentially, I would say really even our first stop for us, right? When we move on beyond this into digging deeper into our own culture. But ancient Africa, there was no historical concept or word for romance. So when we're thinking about the size of Africa, the number of countries, the number of languages, dialects, and cultures within it, there's no indication in any of them that there's even the use of the word romance in any of their languages. So I think we could probably pause there and kind of get some initial reactions, because I think my initial reaction was, no wonder it's so hard to get. No wonder in our community, it's so hard sometimes to seemingly experience romance. So any thoughts on that before we move on?
I like to say it's also not only is it difficult to achieve, but it's also
I have a
difficult
thought
to.
that I would like to express, if you can hear me.
We can. Queen Melinda was speaking. I think there may be some overlap. It's
Delay.
okay. It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I could
No,
not
it's
hear. Go
okay.
ahead.
That's
It's
okay.
okay.
Can
It's
you
difficult
hear
to
Melinda now?
achieve
Can
at
you hear us
some
now?
point. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was saying difficult to achieve at some point, and then also sustaining it. Also sustaining it because it's not a because you go in on the level of the flesh, and then when you guys decide to go deeper, one person always tends to go deeper, more deeper than the other. So you get this imbalance limbo thing, and then there's also not that, what do you call it, the language to even express what it is that you're feeling, if especially in those house, depending on how you were raised in a household. But especially for men, it's not something that they are kind of conditioned to being lovey-dovey type thing.
Yeah.
Very, very true. I think that we had a different definition of romance. And like you said, Queen Melinda, I think, even on this journey, when you start diving deeper as men into ourselves of not attaching to emotion, I think that's another reason that detaches us from romance or what we feel romance is, because we're not actually connecting to the emotion sometimes of what it is, where our queens are connecting to the emotion of what romance is and what it looks like for them. So I know we've had many conversations about what is romance. I would love anybody else who is in a relationship or even has been in relationships, did that ever come across where what they view as romance was different from the man's? So that'd be something maybe that we can talk about tonight.
I agree. And Sis Felicia.
Yes, thank you. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. My initial thought was that it's difficult to think past survival sometimes. So I think that in our, culture maybe, and in our communities, a lot of us are still thinking survival. And I feel like our men are thinking, providing for their families and, stuck in that survival mode. Can't see beyond that to the enhanced part of it. So that was kind of my initial thought. Our ancestors, or maybe the reason there wasn't a word is because maybe they were so busy surviving and not really thinking about the other parts. So yeah, that was my initial thought.
That's a good thought. That's a thought,
Yeah.
right? Pulling in that survival mindset and how that could have impacted the language that they used to describe what they were experiencing. Yeah, that's a beautiful thought.
Right.
Even thanks for that share. So, and it really did bridge us right in pretty smoothly, Queen Felisa, into what were some of our African civilizations' thoughts, right? What were their words and phrases? And so there are many, many, many African proverbs. One of my favorites is if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. But here, what we've done is we've pulled forward some of the phrases that were known all across Africa and different countries within it, of how they did express romance or love. And so in Swahili, there's some sentiments around a wedding is ready, but the bride is missing. And so that's highlighting the importance of essential elements in relationships, right? So it's kind of a way of saying, you know, we're waiting. The community is waiting to be wed, right? But we're waiting for the bride to rise. And then in Yoruba language in Nigeria, there's this phrasing that means true character is revealed over time. And it essentially means that it's about understanding a partner deeply, right? That it takes time to really understand a partner, which could be very different from the way we think of getting to know people these days when you think about things like speed dating or creating the right profile so that people understand who you are in order to meet. It does take time. So that's that thought.
Yeah, and that's even evolution in a relationship, because if you're with somebody for a longer period of time, the way they have an understanding of your partner also changes as their journeys they go on. Romance can show up differently when we first meet at a younger age than it shows up now when we're later on in life, and you know, it could be looked at differently. So that connection, that understanding, I think is important. It's funny, to really quick, it actually goes into what the Kings went through a read this week. And it was connected just about that, the heart and connecting to your partner and within. So I think this ties into that, which we'll touch on a little bit later, but just want to make that point.
Interesting. Yeah. And then so Akan, which is where Akoma comes from, right? So the Akan people in Ghana, so this phrasing here meant every new love starts tenderly. And so it essentially emphasizes the importance of nurturing early stages of love, right? Which is, again, very different sometimes from the way we think of modern day dating, where, you know, sometimes people will kind of call it quits pretty quickly if they see what they think are those quote unquote red flags, right? Zulu in South Africa, love covers the whole world, since their proverb. Love covers the whole world. So that's signifying that love is a universal nature. Amharic in Ethiopia, this phrase means eyes that know each other, love each other, which this one really resonated with me. So I think I've shared with you all that when I saw James, I already knew. It was like I recognized him or something, you know, not that I recognized him maybe in this lifetime, but it just felt like there was an immediate comfort. And like I felt like my spirit recognized him. And I literally, without knowing his name, I went home and I told my friend, and I was like, I think I met my husband.
Wow, yeah.
So that phrase of eyes that know each other, love each other, that really hit me in my core. Like that one. And so it just also describes it's implying the deep connection in relationships. Then we have the Igbo in Nigeria. And this phrase means losing character is the greatest loss.
Wow.
Losing character is the greatest loss. And then the next is Hausa, and that's from Nigeria and West Africa. And this phrasing means affection and fondness are the foundations of marriage. Affection and fondness. So we thought it was important to kind of outline all of this very clever and thoughtful verbiage that was put together by Africans in their languages, although they omitted and never used the word romance. So it just goes to say that there was a lot of thought given, but romance just wasn't a part of that. So, I mean, and I'm gonna open it up again to everybody else on the call, but for me, what I took from that is that maybe romance just wasn't necessary. It wasn't seen as necessary. It wasn't seen as a part of the culture. And if that is so, it would explain why it is difficult for us to achieve if it's not really in our DNA, so to speak, you know? So any thoughts on that? Sis Felicia, is your hand up?
No, I should have put it down.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. So any thoughts on that? Any other thoughts on how African civilizations thought so deeply to come up with so many different proverbs around love, marriage, and relationships, but yet left out romance? So Tasha says, in ancient Europe, it stated chivalry, and that's how I view romance.
Mm.
I think that's how a lot of us did, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah. Dre and Shaw.
No, it just seems to me like they were, I want to say, thinking about love in more of a real time, versus this, again, fictional aspect of what could possibly be. To me, the African proverbs all seem like, again, the work that goes into actual love, and it being something that exists everywhere and within everything. However, being able to recognize it for what it is. So for me, it's just like they seem to have this all knowing about love and how it will derive, how it will feel, versus, well, I know this man who said, like, that's how romance seems to me. Romance is very much Valentine's Day. Oh, I see these people over here putting rose petals all around, and I want that, versus the actual true feeling behind what love is to me, I guess.
I love how you just dissected that, Sha.
Yeah.
I think it's so spot on. Like every cell in me was like, yes,
Right.
that's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah. So she mentioned roses. Do you know? So I never thought about this, but when you know you're reading about this, and it talked about symbolisms of Valentine's Day and romance and all that, right? And everybody wants to do what? Go get flowers, right? And bring them home because that's the symbol, right? Of I love you, right? But I never thought about it like this. I'm bringing you home something that was just cut, and now it's gonna die.
Yeah.
Right. Where in a lot of other places they say, you know, I'm gonna bring you something that you're gonna plant that continues to grow. Right. Like our love, right? That's the symbolism of love.
Like a potted plant
like
or seed.
Correct. Not something that's cut and is already meant to die. You know what I'm saying?
It's on the
So
decline.
when I heard about that, I was like, oh, I never thought about that. I'm always quick to go buy some roses and you know, man outside, $20 for whatever, right?
Yeah.
And
I remember I got in trouble in the beginning because I wasn't so impressed with flowers.
I remember that. I remember
think
that.
was just I was just like, okay.
We knew before we knew, but now I know.
I didn't know, but I
changed
knew.
my whole view on it though. And that's so you won't be getting roses. I'm just letting you know. That's not
I'll
gonna
take a
happen
plant.
anymore. Right.
Oh, Sacred Woman Constance.
Peace and blessings,
Greetings,
family.
Wellness Flora True. Peace and greetings.
Peace and greetings. Yes, ma'am. Hold on for 1 second.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
The thought that comes to mind, as all the brothers know, I'm big on meaning what we say and say what we mean. So when we say the word romance, the root of that word is Roman, is Rome. And the ants only means that it is something of or pertaining to Rome. So they're telling you what it is in the beginning, or even within the word itself. So everything that we gain from that particular knowledge is from their culture, their way of life, and so on and so forth. And that's everything that's been shared for us, is to bring our minds back to our culture. So the first thought that comes to me is that when we were 100% enslaved, 100%, even that means spiritually, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and everything, all we knew was what our slave master gave us to know, what he allowed us to know. And as we began to evolve out of slavery, we began to be released on many different levels. And so we began to be drawn back into a natural way of living. And so, as Sister Tanasia shared, that when she saw Brother James, she just knew. It was a natural knowing. So she was back into her nature way of doing things. And as we learn, as we continue to grow into understanding our true nature, the physical form is a nature form. It is a nature form. So things are designed to happen naturally. And so as we progress and learn more about realigning ourselves with nature, then we will ignite, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Inspire.
Inspire, where we will basically reawaken our natural way of doing things.
Yes.
And one of the natural way of doing things is that for us inside, before the Caucasian came amongst us and initiated his way, was we lived in villages. And inside of the village, we had a particular culture, a particular way of life. And when we speak to the ancestors now, that's one of the primary ideas that we have been reintroduced to, is acknowledging our ancestors. And so from that, we will progress into actually beginning to study the ways of the actual tribe, the ways of the actual village. So there are so many different aspects of our culture that we were stripped of, that we're not familiar with, such as the naming process. And what we're speaking about today is mating. It was the elders who actually mated or placed us together, because number one, in our culture, we knew that every entity coming into existence had a purpose and a reason.
That's
So
right.
the objective was to align entities to be able to carry out the particular function or purpose that they came into this reality to bring about.
Yeah, and therefore they didn't have a such thing as romance, because their courting period was such as their romance. And that's why I believe that also that they didn't have a need for romance and to share that romance thing, because it was a part of their courting. As the elders kind of knew who was a fit, they then courted, and that was their romance.
Right. And it's like we had it. However, we didn't use a term that labels someone else as the founder of it.
Right.
So the term will have to, Baba Moncho, and the term for mama also, Nawasha, actually have brought that to us now to reacquaint us with our original way, which is Akoma.
Right.
That's right.
Right, a boot. So with Akoma, that brings us back into the fold of our culture, our way of doing things.
Comantic.
Right. And we joke around with it. And she said I make up words, but the key is I'm God, so I can.
You recall them, right?
Right, but I'm God. I can introduce new ideas.
There we go.
So Comantic is a term that we use because it's an expression of us and how we do things. So the beauty of it is to know that inside of our original culture, it was our elders, our body of elders, that aided and assisted in ensuring that the proper connections were actually made.
Unified, yes.
Exactly. That just makes so much sense, right? Because when you think about that, because the elders were so involved, because the community was so involved in the creation of the relationship, the two people in relation were not seeking some fictional fantasy of romance in order to make that happen. Shay, that makes sense. Thank you for that share.
You know what? And just to say, so a couple of weeks ago, and I won't mention names, but my daughter, there was someone that was their son was asking, was asking questions with you about, you know, our daughter and their son, just kind of like, oh, like, you know, how old is your daughter? And she's such a great person. She's
Oh,
like,
yes.
we won't go into.
So people are always trying to hook our children up with their children.
Jay, you know I'm ready, Jay. I'm ready whenever you're ready.
Right. I'm like, who asked what? I'm like, what you talking about? I'm like, nobody be asking about my daughter, right? And the young man is older, right? And I'm like, he's too old. Like, what are you talking about? No, we're not ready for this, right? And but now, you know, like sitting and understanding, right, where it's still not gonna happen, but I'm just saying I can understand the concept of, you know, mating and wanting to, with a purpose, aligning, right?
Yeah,
you know,
within the community,
correct,
understanding their path,
right,
you know, from the
yes.
parental lens. So that was a really deep share. Thank you for that.
Thank you,
Brother Truth and
And-
the conference. Like,
yes, thank you.
that's really revealing.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
And Queen Tasha.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So yeah, I was gonna say something simple, but that's not as eloquent as Sister Rebecca did.
All right, give it a shot. Sis. Let's hear it.
No, they drove it home, but I just want to add to it because I was gonna say something similar to that. But even when you look at the Proverbs, to me, it seems like they have to kind of grow in love and grow together. So when they are put together, or for whatever reason, this is why it says, you know, every new love starts tenderly emphasizing the importance of nurturing. The true character is revealed over time. And that's why, you know what I'm saying? It's not the romance part, because they're telling them this is what is necessary, and you guys are gonna grow into it. So that's how I looked at it. So
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I love that we use the word grow, right? So back again to the flowers and giving somebody something that's dying, and planting something or seeding something instead is continuous, right? So just like our relationship grows, we all know if you're in relationship, there's going to be lows and there's highs. And just like something that you plant, there are seasons that there'll be lows, but there's always going to come back to the highs. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that, Tosh, because it's so true, right? It's like you said, from the Proverbs, what we're getting is that the emphasis and the importance is not on the romance, right? It's on the understanding or understanding that from the beginning, there's going to be some growing and building that and shaping and molding and all of those things that has to happen. And it sets the tone for that expectation, which is totally opposite from the fictional fantasy of, you know, of a romance at the very start.
Right.
Because really and truly, I mean, you probably know less about any person in the first however long, right? Like let's say first day, first month, first year, even, right? Then you'll know about them later on and down the line as you really get to experience them.
Right.
So if you were to fall romantically involved, who are you really romancing? Like, who are you really in love with at that point?
Right.
Because there's so many layers of them that hasn't really been revealed yet.
Right.
So I love that reflection, Tosh. Thank you for that.
And even for us, I mean, transparency in our relationship, right? Like we moved in together after 3 months of knowing each other, but we didn't know each other, right? Like I didn't really get to know, you know, like who he was.
I can just say it's divine because I felt like like we felt like we knew each other, but we're still learning each other even now, right? Like, so yeah.
In the chat,
so Dre and Shah said, a couple's intimacy is not about the pursuit of pleasure. It is the pursuit of a kind of power that only spirit can give in a sacred context. Ashe. Ashe.
Love that.
And then Sacred Woman Constance, Wellness Word Truth said, that's exactly correct. We are always looking to grow in love and never fall. Come on, Sacred Word, right?
That's
it. So we talk about that, right? Like being really intentional about our words. And there are these phrases like falling in love, and it immediately feels defeating. It feels like you've lost the sense of yourself. It feels like you tripped, you bumped your head, and you're not going to think straight. And it sets an expectation almost with a negative connotation to it, right? And then we wonder sometimes why there are folks who, whether it's male or female, may be apprehensive about going into relationships. I mean, just from the phrasing, it sounds like something you need to be, you know, cautious of.
Right. Right.
So give
Brother
thanks for
Valentine.
that. Brother Manifest.
Peace, family.
Peace, peace.
I love what you said. Eyes that know each other, love each other. It makes me think about the saying that says, "The eyes are the windows to the soul," right? And if this is correct, then
Good.
it seems to, for me, it seems to mean that it requires deep soul work. To be able to look into each other's eyes and really like continue to see the love. You know, it's like a choice that we
Okay.
make.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. The
Yeah.
window to the soul,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mm. Thank you for that
Thank you,
reminder.
brother. Thank you, brother.
This
Yes.
is very
yes,
timely.
Yes.
So as we go on to further diving into like, well, what is Akoma Day? Okay, so Akoma Day is a cultural observation and it's rooted in the traditions of the Akan people of Ghana. And what's interesting is, so we've been told that the shape of a heart, right, actually in some way signifies our core or the functioning of our actual anatomical heart, and it looks nothing like it. But what it does have a striking resemblance to, and we invite you to research it yourselves as well, is the Akoma. So the shape of the Akoma is actually what we call a heart here in Western civilization. So the Akoma or heart, right, which is an icon from the Adinka set of symbols, it represents the same, right, the heart. It symbolizes patience and tolerance, understanding, and the heart's endurance, which makes sense, right? That goes along with the Proverbs, right? The heart's endurance. And the day is named after the symbol, and it's celebrated also on February 14th. So as Brother Truth mentioned, so there's Mancho and Nuasha Edu. So they have actually done the research, traveled the world, and brought this idea back to America. And so I want to say that was like 1997 that they brought this idea back. It had been socialized already in Africa. They brought it back here, and they're like, listen, the lost tribes that are here in America, you need to know about this. And so we have some links at the end of this to their book. But they wrote a book, Akoma Day, that really gives all of the detailed research and background on what this means for our community, why it's a celebration of love, and why it's something that if we're feeling called to do, we can replace that Valentine's Day experience with, right?
I'm replacing.
Right.
Like I don't know about everybody, but like when we go through these journeys and you read about your culture, I connect with it. Like I feel like I never felt like the Western culture is what I connected with. I feel like this is what I connect with. And like even when Brother Truth was talking about, the village, and in my head, I'm a visual person. So I'm like, I want to be there. I want the village. I want community. Even when we're going through this, it's something that we want to build out as community. And I look forward to one day, hopefully getting back to where we do have villages and community and us raising our young with our culture, right? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And and we've talked about that before, right? That was the intention for our people, is to be in community and to share the way we're sharing openly now with each other, and to get the support of each other within the community, and not to hide our sorrows, and not to hide,
Exactly.
when things aren't going well. Because when we hide, we aren't able to receive the support that's there for us. So
Right. And that's what community was about. I mean, you didn't let marriages fail in divorce because community brought you together and supported, each other, where everybody kind of understood you're not alone and you're not going through this alone. And as a community, we are in this together.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
So unlike Valentine's Day, which focuses primarily on romantic love, Akoma Day is a celebration that embraces a broader spectrum of love, and that includes your family, your community, and even your own self-love. So what's interesting about this is, as we were researching it further, James and I, so we've been together, well, actually this week will be 18 years, right? But we've been married for this year will be 11.
Mhm.
And last year for our 10-year renewal, we created a love altar
Mhm.
and just added all the elements that could really help us to focus and center our energies around love and continuing to cultivate it in our marriage. And so much of what we're learning about how people celebrate Akoma Day had everything to do with what we did intuitively, right? Everything to do with bringing forth those types of experiences into your homes energetically. So we're going to talk more about that too. But the observance of Akoma Day is a response to the desire for cultural specificity. I think I butchered that. Look. Specificity.
Yes.
Specificity.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't have anything to drink, y'all. And relevance, right? So especially among the African diaspora. And it serves as a reminder to honor African heritage, history, and values. And it is a time for educational events, community gatherings, and even the celebration of, our culture through whatever those traditions are.
Mhm.
So that's Akoma Day. And when we think about Akoma Day, so like I stated, we created a love altar. And that can actually be an idea, for you all if you're feeling called to in some way honor this day, Akoma Day, whether it's for you and your sacred partner, your divine mate, or if it's for you and the sacred partner that's within you, right, with yourself.
Mhm.
But to build a love altar and add all of the elements to it that really make you feel loved and therefore reminded of love when you're in the presence of it. Um, Community gatherings, so similar to what we're doing right here virtually. You can bring your other family members or even friends and other networks who maybe aren't aware of this holiday together to share the awareness of it. Also, educational events could do that, right? Artistic expressions, whether it's art, poetry, storytelling, or even just personal reflecting. You could do that by yourself. And acts of kindness. So all of those can help to emphasize the concept of a coma and the reason for it, and then socialize it in some way, some meaningful way. One of the things that struck me about Akoma Day that I really loved was that because it's not about romance and because it's about love, it's all inclusive. So it's
Mm.
I know that there are sometimes people who, especially if you're not coupled, right? Like if you're not in a relationship, just starting to see things for Valentine's Day in the stores can sometimes be triggering. It becomes a reminder of maybe just the idea that you're not coupled, or it can trigger feelings of loneliness even, right? Although that you're never alone. But the idea around Valentine's Day is all so driven towards partnerships
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
it can be a lonely experience for those who are not in a partnership, whereas a coma day has nothing to do with that. It's literally about love, and it's about all the people you love, everybody. It's not just about your partner. And if there's just you, it's also about self-love. So I just really love that it's so inclusive
Right.
in that thought. So there's no one left out of a coma day.
Right. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, thank you for that,
I
Queen
think
Alicia.
that's very important because it gives everyone an opportunity to experience love in a moment where, you know, we should all be experiencing it, right? And not just focus on romantic love, but love is it's such a widespread, idea that limiting it to romance, it doesn't really do any good to the community.
Exactly.
right. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Very well stated.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with again, the read that we were just in it, which is the Love a Man of Harmony. You would think that it's just talking about, what it is to love with a woman or something like that. But it talked a lot about, loving yourself and really attaching to how do you show yourself self-love? That's very important. Before you even love anybody else, you have to learn how to love within first.
Yeah, I love that. And that's in alignment with the two gateways that the queens were moving through also, because we were moving through Ta'at, which is sacred food, and then also moving through sacred movement, which is best. And the two together are also about the same. It's about self-love, essentially, right? Like it's about your diet, your body, and being in tune with it all and really listening to it. And it is self-love. It is self-love.
Yeah. It mentioned just that in ours as well about, you know, showing yourself that love. And it talked about the percentages of how many brothers, as far as, you know, having hypertension and all these different diseases, and how, you know, by pouring into yourself, you can even, you know, heal some of these things, you know, by, you know, having your diets and stuff like that. So we're aligned in that.
It's true. And then Tosh said that's probably why there's Valentine's Day now. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because people were left out.
Right.
They're like, I want to wear pink and red and, you know, put my heels on. And so yes. Women were creating the experience for each other. Right? Because of that feeling of being left out of Valentine's Day.
Right.
That's a really great point. And then Sacred Woman Constance and Brother True said, this is the time. We are laying the foundation for said desire. This is the forum. This forum is the physical manifestation of our spiritual desire. Love that. This is the foundation of our village.
Yes.
As we grow in love, sacred relationships, our physical reality will grow in its reflection of this desire. Wow.
Thank you for those words. Wow. Yes. Thank you for those words.
That's beautiful. And things. And so in terms of our next discussion prompts, and feel free to unmute and just speak into the call. What has shaped your mindset and ideals about romance? So prior to this moment, right? Like prior to this evening, what are some of the things that have shaped your mindset and ideals about romance? And how has that impacted your relationships with others and with yourself? I know I can start by saying, I believed all of the fictional storylines, fantasy storylines told to me as a little girl through the fairy tales that I watched in cartoons and read about in books and everything else about being whisked away, right? And being carefree and having someone, you know, even in the video games we used to play, I remember you always had to like slay the dragon to save the princess, right? So there's that messaging of like, you know, the heroic saving of the woman, and that being the narrative for how they fall in love. You know, there's so many storylines as a young girl that I remember seeing, and you know, that was always the happily ever after at the end, right? That there was this tragic circumstance, there was this saving that happened, and it was a very romanticized event, and then everyone falls in love. They fall in love because of that romantic event, right? Of the heroic act. And then that's what love looks like. So for me, it greatly shaped how I saw romance. I like to be saved. That's how I felt, you know what I mean? Right. And I think with now understanding that that's not biologically even who we are, right? That's not what we come from. We don't come from this fictitious fantasy romanticized space. You know, it makes a lot of sense why it's been this goal that you're chasing, and it's very difficult to find. But brother, manifest.
Yeah, I find that to be really interesting because, you know, like chasing to save someone, like, what is that? Right? Like, that's quite, like, why am I trying to save someone, first of all, right? Like, I think that's very interesting for myself personally, because I got into relationships early on that, you know, I wanted to find a way to save them, even if they didn't need any saving, right? Like, try to find like where is that space that they need saving in, right? And I think that also leaves one to neglect oneself, and not give oneself that love that one needs, you know, and, you know, becoming like kind of like a vicious cycle of toxicity, right? Because I want to save this person, but I need saving at this moment because now I lost myself.
That's good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That was powerful. Yeah. Thank you for that, Brother Manifest.
And it just makes so much sense, right? Because just back to that storyline of like what we saw, or even today still see in movies and films, you know, when you think about it, it's like there's a power in the saving, right? It's like it's you know, the cape goes on to the person who's doing the saving.
Right. And I think also with what you think your mindset of what romance is. We always talk about, again, modeling, right? So what you saw in your household as far as what is romance, right? Like, I thought the flowers was romance, right? Like I saw my father bring home flowers to my mom and, you know, some chocolates or something. You know, this is romance. So I see that. I saw, like you said, movies growing up where the man is the protector, and I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna, you know, that's romantic, because then you save the person and the girl comes off and you whip them off, and it's romantic. But yeah, as you get older, you start, you know, seeing things differently. And
Yeah, because it's like not sustainable.
No, it's not.
You can't do it all the time.
Right.
You can do it once, twice, and then it's like, all right, you're exhausted. And I'm like, come on, you can do it again. You can get one more time.
No more. Yeah.
So yeah, it makes so much sense. Sacred Woman Constance, Montessori of Truth.
I was gonna say what shaped a lot of my ideals of romance growing up was music and music codes. I was a big musical and music person, so yeah.
Wow, yeah.
For me, honestly, well, I grew up in the country, so my perspective of love and romance was way different from what I learned about when I left the country and moved to the city. You know, I went into the military right after high school, and so that introduced me to a whole different variety of people and different cultures. I had never even heard of Islam until I left home. All I knew was Christianity. I didn't know anything other than that. And my mom and my stepdad, a brief introduction. My mom and my stepdad was about 15 years older than my mom. And my biological dad lived no more than 5 minutes away from me. And he and my stepdad worked together. So my concept of love and romance and relationships and things of that nature, it was truly affected by that. My stepdad, being that he was born in 1933, his concept of life was totally different than everybody else around that I'm aware of. And so his whole objective was taking care of the family,
Right.
Whether he went fishing, whether he went hunting, whether he went working with someone on a job site or something like that. That was what I saw. And I witnessed this man, a manly man, I must say, come home. His nickname was Iron Jaw. So he came home and brought the check home and gave it to my mother every Friday. Wow. Literally gave her the entire check. And I witnessed my mother make sure, my stepdad was a drinker, but I witnessed my stepmother make sure that, you know, the bills were paid. She went grocery shopping, but she also made sure that his beverages and things like that, he had it. Every evening that he came home, every morning she woke up, she put the coffee pot on, she made the meals, you know, and he got up, got dressed, and went off to work after doing all that. And he came home every evening. She already had his bath water run because she knew what time he was going to be home. And once he got out of the bathtub, she already had the table set with his meal. So this is what I witnessed as far as romance or love, for that matter.
And his dad would actually bring home, you know, to romance was when he brought home the deer, or he brought home the fish, or, you know, that was romance.
Right. And so how that affected me and my relationships was It was a little difficult in the beginning.
Yeah.
Attempting to duplicate this with women.
Catherine don't want a deer. She don't want a deer.
Right. With women from the city, it's like, I can't bring home a squirrel or a deer or a fish or something like that.
There's romance here.
So it was quite interesting, for me, being awakened to the worldly ways of doing things versus the way that I actually grew up. And so now I've naturally come into understanding that if we slow down and understand that every experience that we actually had, the Creator, the Most High, was actually guiding us and preparing us, or shall I say, our divine ancestors were actually guiding us, doing their same duty. They were mating us up appropriately, even though we weren't listening in the beginning and things like that. But the end result is always going to be, we're going to find ourselves where we need to be with who we need to be for that particular time period. Ashe.
Ashe. I love that so much for so many reasons, because as you were describing your stepdad, you were describing my father in love. So James's dad, you were describing my grandfather, raised me. I mean, they were all born in that same, in the 30s. In the 30s.
That was romance to them.
That was romance, right? Yeah. I think my grandmother said James brought her first dozen of roses. When he came around. That's what that became a thing, Right. That wasn't the way, that romance went for them. So I love that.
Yeah. Wow. It reminded me a lot. The whole story, everything from
the military. You were living like a parallel life.
Brother Truth and I are definitely very similar in many of our paths. And even with the upbringing of, a Southern man, very manly man. My father was a big Southern dude.
And a boxer.
Mouthful of gold, wore gators and pimped out. During school, when he came up for school time, they was like, "That's your father?" I had no problems. But it also really does impact how you view things. Because I'm not gonna lie, like I felt the same way. Like, even, if I'm home and I'm doing the things around the house that I'm supposed to do, that is my romantic duty to do it. I'm taking out, you ain't got to touch no garbage. You ain't got to, I'm do these, I'm doing your laundry. I'm folding your clothes. I'm putting it there for like things that I do for you. I feel, hey, this is romance. I'm taking care of you. And that I see fit to take care of you the way you don't have to do this or that, or, but we evolve also. And I think the key thing is to connect, to understand, not just what romance is, right? But what can I do to take care of you?
Ashe. That's that action thing.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
The acts of service.
Service, right? Yeah.
Yes. But I like to go out, y'all. Like,
once in a while. Once in a while.
All those wonderful things, and I'm like, yep, and I want to go out and see. And James is okay with never going anywhere. Like if he's here, everything that he desires is right here in this place.
That's insane.
That is right here. It's out in the backyard or it's in the front yard or whatever. Like he can be here and he is just completely content. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but I want to go out.
Sound like brothers.
Yeah. Listen, we build this beautiful castle to make moments in it, right? And like, listen, I love my queen, and I know she loves to go out, and I don't love to go out. I'm not gonna say I love to go out, right? I will do it and enjoy my moments with you, because every time she drags me fighting to wherever we're gonna go, I do enjoy it when I get there. After a long fight, probably all the way there.
I say likewise, likewise.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm adding, right, that I've added also now to our love altar is the reminders of exactly what he just said, right? So the picture of us horseback riding or the picture of us on the beach, so he can be reminded that he enjoyed it. Because for me, I'm gonna have that inner yearning to do it because that's who I am. I want to go and I want to do it. But because it's not something he's going to desire from inside himself, he has to visually see it. So I'm like, you need to see this on the altar, right? So you can be reminded that you had a great time, so he can be inspired for us to fold it in, not all the time, but sometimes. So
That is the balance. That is the balance. I give thanks for that. I will be doing that.
I'm going to invest in virtual reality so we could just put on that and we are there.
Right.
That sounds like a little bit of
back in the house we're going.
that sounds like a little bit of reverse psychology over there, Tanasia.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, Queen Taj.
This is so good. This is so good. So when I think about what shaped like my mindset and ideal about romance, similar to what sister and brother said, like my father's super duper duper private. So I never saw intimacy. Like I never saw, them hugging or kissing. And so what's funny is that if I heard them, how you hear your mom or whatever when you're a kid, I just was so disgusted. And I just thought that and I was mad at her. It was just weird, right? And so because I never saw the intimacy, my father was a provider. He took care. My mom was a homemaker for a long time. And so I saw that part, like he's going to take care of the family, make sure we have everything. But the affection and the love wasn't there. And so I feel like as I was growing up, when a boy or something would try, it would like skeeve me out, or it would make me feel like, what do they want from me? Or, they want something from me, or they're trying to use me or whatever. And it just kind of, at that point in my younger life, it made me like closed off, besides the things that happened to me as a kid. So it just really took a while. But then once I open up to a person, now I'm like engulfed, and I love the attention so it's just not seeing it did play a part in my development. And then when I trust you enough to let you in, it's kind of like, now if you don't, I'm like, what's wrong with you today? Like, why why you not hugging me, or why you not, so it just not seeing it, like not seeing it from my dad made me like feel like it wasn't a thing, and then my dad was such like everything, he's just a provider, he's a fixing, he's gonna make it work, but he didn't show that. It was very private with that. So
wow,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like what we witnessed, in the modeling before us, it does shape us for a long time.
Right.
Until we figure out our own shape,
Right.
But it's true.
Wow. So it made me think about our daughter, Tiara. She's always so funny every time she sees
she'd be over us
hugging or whatever. Oh, why are you guys flirting? Like, oh my God, it's so disgusting. Whatever. So now I'm thinking about like, I know that's going to be a part of her that she sees, and that it's a modeling for her. So, she'll look for that in her relationships as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did see my grandparents be affectionate. To, I guess, to the extent that you could expect at their age, right? Or their generation. I mean, they would always kiss good morning. So like my grandmother would already be downstairs and kind of getting breakfast and coffee and all that stuff ready. And then my grandfather comes down, and then they'd kiss. If he worked night, so when he, went to work at night, they would kiss. You know what I mean? So I would see that. They would dance, they would have good times, So I
yeah,
guess
like the same thing. Yeah, it was like my parents were the fun uncle and aunt, right? So everybody, like, they would play with the kids, they buy all the candy and stuff. So I seen like their relationship and how they were together since my mom was like 15. So I've seen that, but then I also know that I'm a boy mom, but I still want my boys to see love. So they're going to see mommy hugging daddy, mommy sitting on daddy's lap, because I don't want them to feel how I felt. When I would see it, it felt foreign to me, or like, like, should I be looking at this? And it's just natural love, and it's just natural affection between two people. And even with, I was telling my sister, because we was watching TV, and there was a light love scene on the show. And I told her, because she was getting ready to like stop it. And it wasn't like a Timu love scene. I mean, a 2B love scene. It was a light one. And I told her, I said, I want my boys to see love and affection from relationships, especially with the agenda and the way they're pushing all of this other stuff, right? So I said it's natural, it's normal, it's important for them to see it. And so I want to make sure and be intentional that my kids see that affection. Even though I knew my parents loved each other and I knew they had that, I just never saw it, and it did shape me in a way. So
yeah,
Right.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's amazing because as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like about just, what did I see with my parents as far as love? And my father wasn't really a very affectionate guy, but again, he worked constantly all the time. But he loved it. And it was the same way he actually brought his check home to her as well. So again, Brother Truth, we have a lot in common. But it's amazing that now my father is 86 years old and he battles dementia, right? And he's at a stage where he doesn't remember a lot, and he could walk out of a room and he doesn't even know who you are. But every single time he sees my mom,
he's like falling in love every single time.
Every single, like I can walk him.
He's obsessed over
No,
every time he sees her.
Right.
It's the cutest thing.
It is, but it's so amazing because that was not the man who he was. But now to the core of who he is in his spirit,
because his ego is not present.
It's correct. It's all that is stripped away. I can walk him to the other room, and when we get ready to come back to the other room, he sees my mom. He's like, "Oh my God!" He's running to her, and he starts hugging her.
He's
and kissing
like,
her.
"Where were you?
Where was you?" Right? And every single time, I just grab my heart, and I'm just like, "Wow."
If she's in the bathroom too long, he's gonna go to.
He's looking for her.
He forgets a lot of things, but he will not forget that she got up and went into the bathroom.
Yep.
He's going to go check on her.
Always looking for her. Always looking for her. In the purest form, that is love. So yeah.
So any other thoughts on what has shaped your mindsets around romance? Everybody should live in the fantasy. Look, what's going on? What's going on with y'all? Queen Alicia.
Greetings, family. Hey, everyone.
Greetings.
So while I'm not going to say we, while I'm on, of course, Jude is chiming in. And I had a question I asked. No, he said, no, I asked him, what is his idea of romance? And he said the flowers and the, dinner and going out and things of that nature. And he asked me the same thing. And I couldn't, forgive me for my dog barking. I couldn't quite define it. I never thought about it. I honestly never thought about romance. And then when everyone, started to share, what their ideas were, I never really, the women in my family are tough. I think I want to say, no, not me, maybe the second one that has been married out of all, like my aunts. My grandmother wasn't married. My mother was never married, my aunts. And romance wasn't displayed often. But with that, I consider myself a romantic person now that I'm hearing the characteristics, but it was something that I never honestly thought about. Just I thought about, okay, do I feel good in this moment? But I never put romance on it. I love love and I can identify love. So then I went even deeper and I said, okay, so Jude, is romance and affection, does that fall under the same category?
That's a great question.
So he said, and somewhat to him, it does. For him, romance, he said, was like an action and what you do, and affection is touch. And that's attached to that action. So once he broke it down like that, of course, I had to go further and just look it up. And it kind of says the same thing to that aspects. It breaks down affection, romance, and then love. But I just wanted to share that. I never honestly ever seeked, or I can't say seek, but thought about romance. Never. And thank you for all your shares. And see, I like to go out too. I'm a going out girl.
You gotta get him out.
And Drew is like James, okay? He's like, listen, we got this house. It's beautiful. We could make it happen over here. I could cook.
Right.
We could invite people over if that's what you want. We could put on
Exactly.
music,
That's
you
it.
know. And I'm like, I just want to go outside. I got a cute outfit. I just want to go out. But, you know, all in all, it's all good. We find balance, you know.
That's it.
So, yeah. Thank you for that,
Okay,
share.
okay, I love that. And I just love you calling our awareness to just really stopping to pause and think, do we really have a set criteria for romance as individuals, you know? Because I mean, even as you were describing this, it's like I was thinking, I feel like mine changes sometimes even based on my mood, right? Like my idea of romance is not always the same, you know, it's not static. It's like it's very much dependent on a lot of things.
Right.
So yeah, I think honestly, the more I think about that idea and the fact that my idea of romance could change, I think it might even be impossible for you to ever really know like what I would find a romantic in a moment, right? Because yeah.
That's what I've been saying.
Like, how would you know?
Do I know?
Sometimes it's going to be going out. Sometimes it's going to be staying in.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to be running a bath for me. Sometimes it's going to be some music and some dancing.
Right.
So I don't know how I would even begin to expect, right, that you could know all the time.
No. But
which lever to pull.
No, but you can expect for me to love you. And I'll do
and
that.
show me in the way that
you in
you
the way.
show me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
I agree, Zan. Did she have? Oh no, she was good.
So Alicia, is your hand still up? Did you have?
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off, but when you said that set off a little light bulb. That is true, because some gestures that can be romance. For me, a lot of that is a clean house. If the house is clean and it smells good and the bed is made, wow, that's romantic to me, you know? But then it can be something else, you know? So that's true, you know, what you just said. Now that I'm digging deeper and thinking about it, yeah, that is true.
Yeah, like it's always changing and evolving. And I remember James saying, well, in the beginning, you didn't need all this romance. I'm like, well, maybe I didn't, you know, like you experience different things and then you grow an affinity for them.
Yeah.
So Sister Constance and Brother Truth said, we are the elders now. How about that?
Yes, we are.
Tasha's shaking her head. She's not ready for that word. Tasha's like, I don't know if I receive it. Elders, I don't know. He says, so we must intentionally direct our actions so that we directly and indirectly influence our ascendants. Ooh, I love that. Our youth are ascending, no longer descending.
Wow. Wow.
That is
beautiful.
Powerful.
Yes, yes, yes.
That is powerful.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
I think that sometimes when we unlearn the toxicity of like what we've come to understand what romance was, right, when we were younger, and we undo some of those things, sometimes it could be a little challenging or you know, different, right, to re-explore that part and rebuild it, right, because now you're pulling from different places and trying to rebuild on like even like what feels good to self, right? What feels good, you know, and how you want to show up and how you want it to show up. And yeah, it's almost like I feel like I'm at this place where I'm redoing everything, like everything in my life, like almost like revisiting the different parts of my younger self. And I feel like I'm at this point where I'm exploring what I may have been exploring when, you know, in the beginning of like what I was trying to explore in romance, right? When I was in my teenage years. So now I'm like rebuilding that part of my understanding, so I can then move into the space of, you know, a healthier understanding of what romance can be for myself and for, you know, future partner.
Right. Right.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yes.
And even as you're describing, just thinking about romance for yourself, like creating that a love altar, even for yourself,
Yes.
right? A
Yep.
self-love altar.
Right.
Maybe even with some photos of you doing some things by yourself that you enjoyed, you know, whether it was, I don't know, cycling or
Right.
taking a walk or whatever it is, but just that reminder, you know, that visual reminder of loving self. Thank you for sharing that, Brother
Yeah.
Manifest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sister Constance, Brother Truth.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. As I was really just sitting here listening to you all, and and of course the the humorous part is there, and you were laughing, and it's phenomenal, because if we don't embrace what we're doing right now, we're actually loving. Like everyone, all 11 people in the chat were actually sitting inside of, remember before I said love is a place. So we're sitting in that place right now. And love is it's a spiritual place.
Right.
Because right now we can't see it because we haven't manifested it. And I'm a grab from the old school Christian reality and say, we always say, our Father which art in heaven, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So we're asking for it to come, but now we have the method to bring it. And honestly, what has happened is technology has allowed us, because technology is a model, something that has been developed to reflect us, and we don't even know it's reflecting us. This right here is reflecting our ability, or what we call telepathy. It's synonymous with telepathy.
Right.
Because we should be able to do this without this.
Come on with that.
Right. Right.
I've been trying to tell my family to get a compound. They don't want to live that close though. They said
because that's what we profess all the time. You just spoke my language, and that ties into what we put in there earlier, is that when we grow more in love, the compound will exist. It will exist, because right now we're all just being trained and readied for that experience.
Right.
If we can do this right here, right now, why are we not doing it in the physical?
Right. Right.
It's only because the desire is not great enough yet. So once the desire is great enough, we'll stop paying for technology and pay for land.
Right.
I say.
Wow.
You better come on with that. Yes.
Okay, Brother Truth.
That's so weird.
And so the main thing I wanted to tie into that, because that's my thing right there. Like, that's what I'm about. Our thing. She get me right. She get me right. She keep me right.
That's it.
She keep me balanced. And because I don't ever want it to be perceived that I'm by myself. I'm never by myself. I'm so comfortable in knowing that when I speak, I represent us. I represent the us. So I shouldn't have to remind my circle that I'm speaking from an us place. When you see me, you should automatically know she's already there. The only reason I'm able to speak is because she's a part of me.
That's it. That's it.
And so when I listened and you were saying like, wow, well, I like this, and I find this romantic, and I find that romantic. I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench real quick, and I'm going to slow us down and say, that's nice that you know what you find romantic, but what does your mate find romantic? And what are you doing? What are you doing to service that? So for myself and my counterpart, Brother James, our objective is now that we know, we will be each other's accountability partner. Hey, brother, you took the wife out. When last time you took her out?
Yes.
Hey, brother, what did you do new? But at the same time, the sisters got to be like, hey, sis, when last time we put a gathering together at home?
Right. You're right.
When last time we did something at home based upon what our mate actually enjoys to cause our, it's the whole concept behind what has been attempted to be stolen, but they didn't steal it. They just gave it their name, which is what they do to everything. So it's okay. They can repackage it and all of that, but it's still authenticated with us. So the question is, how are we caring? Because, and I'm doing this because of when I look up at the chat thing, it said sacred relationships. And if you haven't done it yet, I'm going to recommend that you look up both of those words. Sacred relationships. This is not sacred union book study. This is sacred relationships. So it's a broader spectrum than just husband and wife.
Right.
This is the community. This is the rebirth of the community, the rebirth of the village, the sacred relationships. That's, we're in chapter 7, not chapter 8. I know the book too. I know, look, sacred woman. If you're a sacred man, you should have read Sacred Woman, because the divine feminine exists in you also.
That's right.
And if you are a sacred woman, you should have also read Man Heal Thyself, because the divine masculine in you also. So that part also needs to be healed. So when I was listening, I was like, oh my God, I got super excited, because like, man, because we get excited when we can relate to other people that's just like us. But what about the other side?
Yeah.
Right.
And I really just want to give us all credit for saying, you know what? We're here, we're in community, and it bears witness that there is the strongest possibility that if we choose and set our intentions and plan at any given amount of time, we could be living physically amongst one another, having the same experience.
That's it.
So true.
That's it.
It's so true.
It will be.
So true.
It will be. Yes.
And with that, I yield. I share.
We are we are complete.
That was a divine share, and I can't wait to recall that message.
Right. Right.
When it happens.
Oh man.
You know, when it happens, I do believe it will.
Listen, Brother Truth, and you know, just like last night, man, you know, we connect in so much. And just even what you said about you and your queen, like when you speak, it's known you're speaking for us. Like we said last night, Brother Truth, I know you remember this. We said, without her, we won't heal.
Ashe.
That's it. So, you know, we are connected, and we speak as a unit, and it will be, Brother Truth, we will be in community. We will be in the physical at some point. I know that it will be that. We're building that. So
I'm gonna affirm and confirm and share that it already is. It already is. We just have to catch up with it.
That's it. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Right now, we've started with an acre, and we got room enough for about 3 tiny homes for who's ever ready.
That's it.
And if we got to start with tents, you can start with a tent. We won't frown on you.
Right.
You better watch out. We're gonna show up with a tent.
Look, I'm gonna shoot you their address.
We gonna make a retreat.
Matter of fact, don't even bring the tent. We already got them laid out this week. Ashe.
I received that. Look, Tosh said, I definitely have a tent. But she has a tent. So there's some more tents in the chat.
We're starting something. Here we go. Yeah.
So one other thought before we part is wanted to share is the idea of Maat, right? And Cupid. So in Kemetic history, which is the ancient Egyptian history, right? There are many goddesses and gods that had their respective capabilities, right? And the goddess of Maat was known for her relationship with the capabilities. And so just to give you some background here, so Maat and Cupid, right, they represent very different cultural concepts, right? But to some extent, they both represent love, right? Maat in the ancient Egyptian or Kemetic belief is the goddess of truth and balance and justice, harmony, and essentially love, right? The conduction of love throughout the universe and the regulation of harmony and balance through all seasons, right? And even in movements. And the principles of Maat are basically a guide to the Egyptian lifestyle.
Mhm.
So to the extent that I encourage you, to do your research as well. You could look up the 42 laws of Ma'at to get an even better understanding of the foundation that this goddess is based off of, right? But you can tell by even in her stance and what we learn about body language, right? That openness and the wings that spread open to encapsulate and kind of create the balance and also even take flight, right?
Mhm.
Or even to hold and console. That's the essence of Ma'at, which is also at the root of Akoma, right? That Ma'at, balance, harmony, love. And in contrast, you have Cupid. Cupid is known for to the Greeks, right, as one of their Roman gods of love. His similar with the wings, right? But the stance is typically with the weapon, so to speak, right? The arrow. And the storyline behind Cupid is very much of a mischievous cherub who would shoot people to basically bring them together into relationship, even if they weren't intended to be.
Right.
So the storyline behind that type of love it actually is inspired by the opposite of balance. So it was really inspired by the storyline of Cupid bringing people together who essentially shouldn't be together.
Right.
And tricking them to do what? Fall in love,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So very different than the idea of Ma'at, which is an intentional space of harmony, balance, and truth. And Cupid is the exact opposite of that, right? It's about trickery and fooling people into believing that they should be in love with each other. And those are just the storylines that are the underpin of Saint Valentine and Valentine's Day, or Akoma Day, right? So even those storylines are very telling
Mhm.
of how when we use the word or phrase whitewashed,
Right.
right? When we allow ourselves to whitewash our culture, we energetically take on those energies that are tied to those storylines, those
Mhm.
energies that are tied to those lifestyles. And so being intentional, we can make the shift from Cupid to Ma'at by just having the awareness of the two different stories and going with the one that feels most, closely aligned for you and your spirit.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know that, growing up, I did not know anything, but what was shown to me, with Valentine's Day and Cupid and all that, and all those things. And I say to myself now, like, my parents were very much like a lot of parents back then, just going to work and doing those things, not necessarily taking the time to, dig into our culture, to understand these things. And I love that, we're on this journey because when you know better, you're doing better, and you're passing on, as they said earlier, right? Our kids are ascending, not descending. We are giving them new knowledge and an understanding of what culture means, and not to look at just things on the surface of what is shown to you, but do your research and understand the culture behind it, and then you can make a choice of what is really for you. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. There are so many social norms
Right.
that, whether it's school or even at home that we've become accustomed to
Mhm.
that we don't even sometimes know where it was
Right.
derived.
Right.
But to your point, like making it an intentional effort to learn about it,
Right.
then we can, like you said, do better, right?
Right.
Because we know better.
Well,
So
once you are, and I was saying this to a couple of brothers the other day, that's coming along, this journey now. Once your eyes are open,
mhm,
they can never be closed. Like there's no way that I can ever see the world the way I saw it before,
mhm.
because it's impossible. Everything that I see now, no matter if I'm watching something on TV or I'm reading something, if I see something,
It's an
it
awakening.
is. It's totally different, so
It
yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah.
When I think about the differences between my aunt and Cupid, I think about with my aunt, it's the development and the creating of love from a place of truth
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
of like a reality, right?
Mhm.
Showing up as your true self
Right.
in order to attract.
Right.
And Cupid is essentially weaponizing love,
Right.
right?
Right.
And in a lot of ways, even though we might not have really been thinking about Cupid when we're, approaching love. In a lot of ways we have, weaponized love, right?
Right.
There are people that very often you show up as your representation of yourself, and you're
Right.
dating someone and you're not really being who you fully are, and they
Right.
don't get to know who you truly are until later on. And
Right.
that's along the same lines of that with tricking, right? That tricking that Cupid is doing, right? So it's in the likeness of that storyline of I'm tricking you by pretending to be someone who I'm unable to sustain
Right. Right.
in order to get you on the hook.
Yeah,
And
it is. It's funny because you say I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like the tricking part, right? So you even think about it, like we was taught, right, that gifts you give the woman gifts, you not just the flowers and candies. I remember other brothers, and throughout my life, that are getting their girl or their wife a big tennis bracelet and all these different things that's expensive, and I'm like, I don't have it at this time to get my girl. Does that mean I don't love her as much as that person does? Because why? Because somebody said that getting this piece of jewelry means I love you. Because you could treat her horribly
every other day
of the week, but because on this day that it was set, you went and had the biggest gift because you got the most. Does that mean that you love her the most? It doesn't. So it's about being in balance and really taking the time to love your partner and connect, in the spiritual way, I believe. So you're loving her every day, not just
Exactly,
right, yeah.
exactly. And in both books, we're going to explore more deeply Maat as well. And Maat, I have an affinity for because it's also the gateway that I ascended in. But we will get there on that and dive deeper into that as well. So we are wrapping up with homework. So you can either take a screenshot here or, as per usual, I'll drop it into our chat. And the homework here is really to define love for yourself, after all that we've discussed today, this evening, to really define love for yourself and love of yourself, how you love your community, partners, family, whoever. What is the cultural significance that you want to play, in that, like in terms of what you want to teach your children. I think Tasha talks about, right, modeling. So what do you want to teach your children about the culture of love as you approach February 14th and any other day? Or what do you even want to just teach your inner child, yourself, to reteach yourself about how to incorporate love into your daily life, and then creating your own personal traditions. So, think about creating your own day of love with maybe even combining some of the elements of Akoma Day. What traditions would you like to include to make it meaningful for you and your community? Who in your family or in your circle do you want to share this with so that they understand that you've made a change, if you decide to do that, right? So that's part of the homework. And then the other part of the homework is the recommended reading. So 3 books, right? So we have The Spirit of Intimacy, and I know we have referenced this book 1,000 times because James and I love it.
Yes.
I gotta tell you, every single one of these books is a quick read. You can read this in less than 2 hours most of the time. So they're quick reads because they get straight to the point, right? So The Spirit of Intimacy takes you through some of those tribal teachings around relationships. So all the relationships, just the way Brother Truth described them, right? Not just your partnerships. It steps you through community and what the role of community is. And I think Brother Manifest talked about this on a prior call, right? The idea of going to community and allowing community in and the forgiveness that happens in that space too. So that book is, oh my goodness, it's a must have if you don't have it, right? And then Akoma Day. So Akoma Day is actually, there's a Kindle version of this. I don't think that they offer any longer the printed version, but it's a guidebook into the sacred science of soul mating and the cultural alternative to Valentine's Day, which is Akoma Day. And it's written by our beloved sacred sister and sacred wellness warrior, Mancho and Nuasha Idu. And all of the amazing research that they've done to bring this forward and to spread it throughout America. I mean, it's no slim effort that they're making this movement happen. So shout out to them, and they are in lockstep with this community because they are also given the grace and blessing of Queen Afua, Baba Haru, which is the community leaders of, right, the Sacred Woman and Man Heal Thyself experiences. And then there's my book, right, which is Surrendering to Soft Living. And it's a guide to discovering the soft power of divine femininity. And as a woman, I have written it from a woman's lens, but it is definitely for all people in the sense that just very similar to what Brother Truth described, right? We have this balance within us of both femininity and masculinity. And it's a quick and easy reference to really understanding who your true self is and allowing yourself to experience femininity from a way of just surrendering. So that's the homework. These are actual links. So I'll actually drop those into the chat as well. And that brings us to our conclusion. This is a great discussion this evening. It always is.
Yes.
Well, we look forward to it. So I guess we can, unless anyone has any final comments or questions, we'll just open it up one more time before we go into our closing affirmation. Anyone have anything they'd like to share? Okay. So we will go ahead and close out with our affirmation as a call and repeat.
You can unmute if you want to participate. I am grateful for the insights gained.
I am grateful.
I am grateful for the insights gained.
I carry the strength of our community with me.
I carry the strength of
our community with me.
I continue my journey with love and purpose.
I continue
my journey with love and purpose.
Until we meet again in gratitude and growth.
Until we
meet again
in gratitude and growth.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Blessings.
Beautiful discussion this evening. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks for everyone.
And pouring in. Okay. Oh, and I just wanted to mention for the queens, because tomorrow is Akoma Day, right? Akoma Day and Valentine's for those who would still wish to, indulge. We will be meeting on Thursday for our Queens book study. So I'll send the reminder in our group chat as well. But sending love and blessings all. Have a great evening.
Blessings.
Okay.
Blessings.
Peace and blessings.
And
Peace
blessings.
and blessings. Good night.
Good night.
Rest well.